Have you ever had a vendor suddenly cancel right before your big retreat? I'm talking one of your transportation people, or the chef that you hired to cook for the 15 women that are showing up to Costa Rica with you, or one of those 15 women decided to back out last minute, leaving an empty spot in your retreat that now you don't know what to do with. These unexpected moments can throw your entire event off because they throw you off. What if you could handle each and every one of them with a lot more confidence and make the retreat a lot smoother? So I'm Samantha, small business and trademark lawyer here at Inline Legal, and today I'm here with Raelyn. She's the founder and CEO of Retreat Magic. She's a seasoned retreat host, guide, helper, event planner who truly knows the ins and outs of helping you manage unforgettable retreats. She's got more than 17 years of experience in event planning. She's known for turning big ideas into clear, actionable plans, which, Lord knows, all of those of us with big ideas need someone like her to, keep us reined in every once in a while. So she brings structure to that whole creative process so her clients can leave their retreats with the confidence that they want to, knowing that all the details are taken care of. She helps those purpose-driven entrepreneurs bring their retreats to life without that overwhelm. Because the best retreats, they don't happen by accident, they happen by design. Normally Raelyn designs. So her and I are going to talk about a couple of real-life stories about how Raelyn has helped handle tough retreat scenarios, or made up ones because we know they happen often enough, just to walk you through how this can help you on your next retreat and help you learn exactly which contracts and protections can save the event that has teeth, so you've got something to defend the policy that you're now putting together for this issue, for this interaction that create a better event for you and your attendees. So before we dive in, I just want to make sure if you want to join our mailing list, the link is down below. It's also going to pop up here, where we share exclusive tips and occasional sales to our retreat template bundle. We may also have some freebies in there for you from Raelyn, so come check it out. And you also want to go check her out on her website, because she's going to have a lot more for you on this than I ever could. All of these things are going to be designed to help you avoid all these issues from the start. Raelyn, let's start with vendor cancellations, because no retreat happens with one person. It's impossible, right? We need a team of people, really, to put these together. Who are the vendors typically that we're looking at when we're putting together kind of your standard retreat, even if it's the yoga retreat, the business planning retreat, the women's empowerment retreat, the mom needs a freaking night off retreat, whichever one. What are the vendors we're seeing across all of these retreats?
I would say your core vendors are typically your venue, wherever you're sleeping, wherever you're talking. So sometimes that's a hotel, sometimes it's an Airbnb, or a combination of those things. Sometimes it's like a peer space rental where you're just borrowing an office for a day or something. So I would say your venue, your food, right? That's like the first thing everybody thinks of. So what are you going to feed me? It's one of the first things I think of too, let's be honest. So the food is important. We have to make sure there's good food. Otherwise the whole event is, why did we come here if not to eat good food? So the catering is definitely important. Now, sometimes depending on your venue, they give you a list you have to choose from. Sometimes you're ordering in to the Airbnb, right? And all of those options are available. Or maybe you hire a chef that comes in and, you get a little fancy. So those are options. Also, it's not always a vendor per se, but I would say also your transportation. So sometimes that's an Uber driver that's getting people from the airport to your Airbnb. Sometimes it's someone who's taking you on a tour of the city or something like that. So I'd say transportation is also definitely something I would look at as a key vendor to consider when you're booking these things. And then you have some smaller things now and then, like if you want some type of entertainment, you're going to bring, she's an impressionist. She does like a Dolly Parton impression when I did an event in Gatlinburg. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So her, and I can't remember who came with her. He looked like Burt Reynolds. But anyway, so yeah, so you may have entertainment vendors that also, are part of the process as well.
Yeah. All right. So thinking about those kind of in order of those are our crucial ones, right? And whether one of them cancels last minute creates a totally different situation then, right? If we lose the venue, we lose the house, if we lose the co-working space, that's a different issue than us losing the Dolly Parton impersonator, unless your whole thing is themed around Dolly Parton, right? But it depends on the purpose of your retreat in the first place, right? So first we got to take that in mind. But let's say venue calls you last minute, and the owners decided they want that weekend and they're kicking you out, or the place burned down, God forbid, right? And venue's simply just not available to you. What does this look like?
Yeah, I was actually booked to go to Asheville the month after it got hit by the storm and basically wiped the map. And so, yeah, I mean, these things happen, right? And sometimes it's, I would say, in control, and sometimes it's out of control, right? So I can't help when a storm comes and washes away Asheville. And I know they're rebuilding, and I can't wait to go back because it's still on my list. Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. And so sometimes it's like you said, right? Like the owner decided they're not going to actually be away this weekend, so they're not going to lend you their house. And what can you do as a retreat host, right? What are your options? And that all comes back to your contract, because if you don't, some of it depends on timing, right? With the Asheville situation, like I said, we were about a month out. And so I had time to re-plan things. But the whole purpose of that event was to see the fall foliage and to go apple picking. Like those were the top priorities for that event. So we ended up really.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we make sure we're still keeping the priority of the retreat as the forefront of figuring out the solution to this issue.
Yeah,
right?
so we actually ended up in like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, like having our road trip situation. And, you know, we had enough time in that moment to be able to pivot and adjust our flights, because the truth is the airline was like, well, you were flying into Asheville, or we were technically flying into Charlotte. So if you're flying into Charlotte, well, Charlotte and Asheville are like 2 hours apart. I'm not giving you a credit for your flight, right? So like now looking at the budget, what impacts does it have? I mean, it's a big deal. Losing your venue is huge. And then, I mean, there used to be horror stories. I don't think we have this problem as much anymore, at least not that I've heard of. I don't know if you remember the days when like Airbnb was still kind of an up and coming thing, and people would list other people's houses for rent there. And like the people are just like, imagine someone walks up to your house today and they're like, hey, I'm here to rent as an Airbnb guest. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my property.
Get off my property.
Yeah. So like, I mean, those things I don't feel like I've heard about in probably 5 or 6 years or more, but it's definitely, you know, a risk that you take in planning this. And it's like, okay, so now what?
So now what?
Now you have the option of pivoting, you have the option of canceling, you have the option of whatever your contract says you have the option for, in all honesty.
There you go. And I think it's so important to realize that when you're booking a service provider or a venue, particularly the venue is going to be the one giving you their contract, right? Reviewing it before you sign it and being like, so wait, what happens if there's a hurricane in the mountains in North Carolina? I know that's crazy. It shouldn't be crazy, but it happens, right? What happens if the airline simply can't come in because there's FAA issues at Newark and Newark suddenly shut down flights? That's happening right now at the time of this recording. There are issues that are going to be outside of your control. There's also the issue of, you know, maybe this venue just doesn't work anymore. So checking the contracts that come from the person that you're buying the service or renting the place from, asking what happens in those situations is going to be super helpful for you. And if they can't answer those questions for you, probably don't want to work with them because they haven't thought about it either, which means they're not going to be so easy to work with in case a real issue does come up that is completely unpredictable. So making sure you review those things about cancellations, penalties, adjustments, if you need to change the dates a little bit on something in those contracts, is going to be really important. But then making sure that you, because now you're the service provider of the host of the retreat to your attendees, making sure that you also have flexible protections for yourself in your contract to your attendees. Otherwise, you can't pass on that flexibility for yourself. Then you're being stuck, dictated to by your venue and by your attendees. And why on earth would you do it? It's your retreat. You get to make the rules. Literally, that's what the contract is. It's your rules for your retreat. So don't allow other people to come in and create the rules for you when you have the ability to write the rule book for Monopoly yourself, right? Making sure you're looking for those both in yours and your vendor's contract is going to be really important. And I think, Raelyn, we've talked, you know, off camera about the importance of making sure you've got all those contracts with your vendors in a retreat binder. This document that you proper binder, right? Of all these documents that you say are really helpful to have, you know, during the retreat in case something does go wrong. I'd love to talk about, you know, we've talked about the venue, but let's talk about, you know, if your food person cancels last minute, or you've got an attendee that shows up with a food allergy they didn't say anything about and they just decided to tell you 3 days into the retreat because they suddenly don't like what's on the menu. It might happen.
Yeah.
Logistically, how do we manage those situations, right? What are the best steps for a host when they flat out cancel, or you've got an attendee causing an issue, you know, during the retreat? You have a lot of time to fix this. You have to quickly find a replacement option.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would say is, and I've heard this from your mouth, is communicate it early and communicate it often. You know, make sure that in the guest intake form, when they're registering, when they're giving you money, that you go through the process of saying, if you have an allergy, please indicate it here. As a good host, of course, we want to provide people options that are going to make them feel satiated, right? That's part of hosting. But we also need to run an event, and we do have 15 different people we can't necessarily do 15 different dietary restrictions and things like that. It becomes too complicated and very cost prohibitive. So I would say you need to ask early on and let them know, like, there's a cutoff. Like, if you don't tell me more than a week in advance, a month in advance, whatever that looks like for you, then I may not be able to accommodate your request. Now, of course, I'm going to make every effort to make it happen. If that means I need to DoorDash you a meal, then it's coming out of the contingency fund and it'll be fine. But we also need to make sure that we're being mindful of when we have to spend that money and protective of that. We don't want to create a situation for ourselves when we can prevent that from happening. Otherwise, you just end up losing money. And then there's all this food left over. And who's going to eat it if it doesn't match anyone's dietary restrictions? The best case scenario is to hedge it off before it happens.
I love what you said about the cutoff time specifically, right? Because somebody's showing up the day of after you've already spent the past 2 weeks deciding on the menu with the chef, and they've already done all the shopping. Just telling you when they arrive is going to create a situation where your chef either has to readjust and buy different food, right? Make sure there's a separate meal that's going to take more time from them. And then does that wind up costing you money? Is it in your contract with the chef that they're going to eat that cost? Probably not if they've got a good one. This is probably on you, right?
You know, you tell someone you have 2 weeks before the event to tell me if you have any dietary restrictions or allergies. Then you can, at that point, now because you have the policy in place, I love having tight rules, very firm rules, and being able to say, you know what, for this meal, I'll DoorDash you something. If in the future, this is the list of what else is going to be eaten, like what else we're serving for the rest of the event. If you feel like this isn't going to work for you, then feel free to DoorDash something for yourself. Or if you want to be the hero and you want to DoorDash them something each time because it'll mostly work, they just need a different type of protein or something, then you can do those things. But having the firm and fast rule gives you the flexibility in the moment to be nice and make an exception, but you can't go the other way around.
Yeah, agreed. I like to say whenever we're helping clients with contracts of, look, we're drafting the contract to be the bad guy because it allows you, it's crazy. It's almost like ventriloquist. The puppet can say the nastiest things. And even though a person is the one controlling that puppet, they can be like, it was the puppet. It wasn't me. The contract is your puppet. As a host, as a business creating the space for folks, you absolutely have the right to say, well, I'm sorry, the contract says we can't actually do this, but I want to make sure you're good. And I'm going to DoorDash this one meal for you. I'm going to give you the menu in advance. We don't do that for anybody else. And you tell me if there's anything on this menu that's going to be a real problem. If we can swap things out, I'll take care of it. If we can't swap things out to make it work, I'll make sure that you've got the address so you can DoorDash things to yourself. Right? It allows you to be the solution provider rather than having to come down like, house mom trying to beat people over the head with the stick. It's a much nicer place for you as a business owner to be from. And then, okay, all right. So then we were talking about really like your entertainers, or maybe you're bringing a yoga specialist to offer sessions during the day. Maybe you're bringing some kind of energy work person in to do Reiki healing with your people. What happens if those folks show up last minute, or what happens if they cause harm while they're there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I do want to put everyone's mind at ease, right? Like we're not trying to do some fear mongering here. I want you to understand.
No, we're just trying to give you all the ideas.
For any of these things to happen, okay, any of them, first of all, but they do happen, right? This is life. Things happen. Traffic happens, car trouble happens, hurricanes in the mountains happen, right? But in the event that you kind of have to plan as if something might go wrong, hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? If you have a schedule, which you should have a schedule, a whole run of show, and indicate, what sessions go in what blocks and who's running those sessions. If I were in a situation where a person who's a service provider of some sort, whether they're coming in and giving massages, doing a yoga class, Dolly Parton impersonation, and they're not able to make it, option one is we should have at least 2 items on our backup plan that I can sub in for that time slot. And it may be, 2 or 3 of the same option that you just have for the whole retreat. It's not necessarily something where every single block you have to come up with 85 different things as possibilities, but have 2 or 3 backups. You're not going to need more than 2 or 3 backups typically. If you need more than 2 or 3 backups, we have a bigger problem somewhere and we'll have to figure out what it is. Looking at this particular time slot, if we were supposed to go out and do something and the transportation canceled, or the vendor, like the zip line place is closed, or whatever the case is, then we look at what we can sub in for it. Sometimes that means like call the person who was going to come in tomorrow and see if they can come in today, and we'll switch these two people. Looking at the flexibility on those things to see if they're possible is always a good option, depending on how important that particular session is for you too, right? And the timing of everything.
Like, depending on how important that is, right? How much margin it is, how core it is to the transformation you're trying to provide.
Absolutely.
Like, only you know, as the person who's created the retreat, right, what is a high priority for the experience that you're trying to create.
Even if you've held this retreat before, and we were saying before, like going to do yoga by the side of a creek in the mountain, part of your thing, and then it rains 8 inches the night before. Well, we're not doing downward dog in the rapids, right? So like, you have to find something else that could sub in there. And that may have been an integral part of, what people raved about on the last event, but practicality does not allow us to do it now. Then we have to look at the alternatives. So I always like to have a couple of alternatives kind of in my back pocket, like 2 that are indoor, 2 that are outdoor, to see, what we can sub into things and what is a good substitution in the moment. It can be fluid. And I also, I get to every event with like a million hours of planning, and we put in all this effort and collaboration with the host to create something that's absolutely beautiful that they have in mind. And then at some point in the process, for me, it's usually like getting on the plane. For me, it feels very ceremonious. I get on the plane and I'm like, okay, now the planning is what the planning was. I cannot change it, right? Now it's go with the flow mode. So you kind of flip and you switch over from structure and planning and, to, okay, go with the flow. Whatever's the easiest, whatever's the least resistance, and kind of assessing things based on that so that you can create something that doesn't stress you out because this is what the schedule says, and doing more of like what makes the most sense right now in the moment.
Well, that makes so much sense. And I think if you've got those couple of backup activities kind of waiting in the wing, especially if they're simpler things that you don't need another person for, you suggested a couple in the house, things that you don't need reservations for, things that are easier to pull off when you're in a go with the flow mode, having those in your back pocket ready to go is really going to calm your mind as a retreat host, which I think is so crucial.
Something as simple as arts and crafts. Like, it's funny, especially, I don't know if it's as much for men, but definitely for women, there's something very therapeutic about creating, especially creating with your hands. So, whether you're literally coloring or playing with clay or, art therapy of some sort or painting, I mean, there's a million options. And so all that means is that you have to have one activity, kind of have the materials and the instructions stashed so that if something does go wrong, you can pull it out and you're good to go.
And you want to make sure you have flexibility for that in your attendee contract of like, look, we have an itinerary, but life happens, y'all. Stuff changes sometimes. This is just a reality. Again, giving you the flexibility as the host to change things up as you need to, as you see fit, because it's your retreat, right? They signed up, but it's yours.
It's your party.
It's your party, and you can cry if you want to.
I hope you don't.
I hope you don't. Ideally, you don't. I mean, that's kind of the point of why we're talking about this, right? We want happy retreat hosts completely. I would love to transition a little bit into kind of where, as somebody who supports retreat hosts in all of that planning, especially the planning that happens before when it's like, build the structure, get it right, where you're seeing folks starting to have retreats more. Are there any locations that have, really perked up, become trendy in the last year or so?
I mean, I feel like you kind of have your tried and true places, right? Like Sedona is huge. A lot of people are looking at international spots right now. And I think sometimes people dream of international and then they start the process and it intimidates them and they back away from it because it is a little more in terms of logistics and even in terms of legality. Like, you may or may not need a business. Like if you're going to Bali, you need a business in order to host a retreat there. So it can be a little bit different. It really just depends on the person and what you're trying to create. And then you also have the current climate and the way things are. A lot of people are not comfortable leaving the States. So I feel like over the next few years, you're going to see more domestic retreats, finding some gems in the States that people aren't necessarily as familiar with may come to light. I don't think that retreats are going anywhere, and I don't think the international retreats are going anywhere, because the truth is people still are craving the connection that I feel like, even though it was maybe like 6 or 8 weeks there during COVID, I feel like people are still craving that connection and they've become more aware of it. And so retreats is a great place to find that connection.
And the beautiful thing about retreats, especially when most of them are looking at these more soft skill things that we're trying to create around the transformation, so they can be sold to people that live anywhere as long as you guys share a common language. right? But when it gets down to like the legal and the registration requirements, there are a couple places, like you mentioned, Bali, that requires a business license to operate there. Most of Europe will require you to get a seller of travel license from them because you're combining accommodation, transportation, and you are essentially acting a bit as a travel agent, unless you just flat out hire a travel agent to do this for you, which is a way around these things. Nationally, we have higher consumer protection laws that mean these things are even more in place than they are in the U.S. But even within the U.S., there's 5 states that, like, I would recommend avoiding as a retreat host because they do have these same seller of travel law that require people to really work with a travel agent if they want to make sure they're not getting fined after the fact. And that's California, Hawaii, Florida, Iowa, and Washington now.
New York is the one stand out.
But that's what, okay, you're like Sedona. I'm like, Arizona doesn't care. They're libertarian enough.
And to be honest, it surprises me that Florida and California are on the list. You know, and I'm not sure what the reasonings are. I haven't looked at the
Disney is protecting their own.
And I'm sure that's part of it, but it feels like tourism is such a big deal that you want to bring anyone into the states that come. But I know some of it is also around timeshare and like how you can't just sell travel if you're just anybody. There are rules and regulations that you have to look at. And sometimes even selling to people in those states, you have to be careful. There's some legality there that if you're not aware of, when you get into the weeds of it, you're like, wait, I've put in all this time and effort and now I'm not even supposed to be doing this. That's not the feeling we want you to have.
I mean, particularly like if you happen to piss somebody off in the process of any of this, you don't need a weak spot that can be exploited against you. So making sure that you understand, you know, what obligations you do have. Look, if you're doing this as a one-off, like anything in business, that's probably a decently low risk. But the more often you run something, the more visible something becomes, the larger number of people that are there, the higher visibility it is. And with higher visibility does come higher risk. You as the business owner have to decide, right, how much risk you're willing to tolerate, how much information you want on that. I'm going to be going deeper in another video about kind of how we can structure things to try to avoid seller of travel things to an extent. Largely, that looks like making sure that every dollar that you're earning from your retreat can be shown as an expense for what you're putting together, which has nothing to do with the housing or the food or the accommodation, anything that would be something a travel agent would book, and probably avoiding some of these places and not booking air travel. Do not book air travel for people. Please do not. There is enough of a mess around air travel, or particularly in the United States, and how little protections we give flyers in the United States, that when there are delays and cancellations, if the airlines aren't willing to help them, it does not need to be on your plate as a retreat host. You need to focus on the experience, not on that logistical part for that. For anybody that's hosting retreats, leave the air travel out of it.
For your own sanity's sake.
Truly, it's not worth it, y'all. And that being said, you should also remember, if you're taking something international, tell people they need a certain amount of time on their passport, check if they need visas, remind people that this is their problem. A lot of folks, they're leaving the U.S. for the first time, or they're leaving, you know, North America for the first time, right? Maybe they've gone to the Caribbean and Mexico, places that are very used to dealing with Americans who arrive with visas on arrival. Not every place is like this. Giving them information is going to be helpful to prevent issues for when somebody shows up at passport control in the foreign country and says, I can't get in. And now you have to figure out what to do because you can't control passport control. Like that's completely out of your control.
Or you don't know the address of the place that you're staying at for the next week. And
when they require it for the form to come into the country.
Require it. And if you can't give it to them, they're not letting you in. These are important pieces of information to know for sure.
And I mean, these rules trip up countless hosts. These kind of things are really the deep in the weeds. You've been doing this a lot. You happen to get that one person from California that knows this rule and is a travel agent and they're pissed that you're doing like this. Again, we're not trying to freak you out. We're trying to give you the information that isn't super available. I don't see people talking about this aspect of retreat at all.
No, we talk about the waterfalls.
Right. Yes. So for anybody watching, I would love for you to drop in the comments, you know, what last minute changes you've dealt with at your events, at your retreat, or if you've been the person causing the last minute change at an event or retreat. How was that handled for you? Either being on the person, you know, hosting it or the person that wound up in the situation. Because we don't control the flights, right? Just because these things happen, it doesn't mean it's the attendee's fault or the host. stressful, but kind of having an idea of how we can manage those is going to be super helpful to everybody in making a happier situation. So let's say somebody's flight is delayed and it turns into like a 3-day delay. We're on an international kind of thing and the retreat is high-paced. As a retreat host, I mean, really, what are the options that we're looking at here? How can we make this into a positive situation for our attendee, or lack thereof attendee, maybe?
Yeah, the missing attendee. It all comes back to the contract and knowing that they made a purchase, that they cannot undo that purchase for any reason, right? Because it's not just, I want a refund. Sometimes some customers, believe it or not, won't even have the conversation with you. They missed their flight. They'll go back home from the airport and just decide they're not going and do a chargeback on their credit card. Having these things in place in advance is really important. And then in addition, like we said before, allowing the contract to be the bad guy. You can decide depending on how much time is left, right? Like as a retreat host or as someone who's hosting this retreat and you've already paid for the venue, right? There is a bed that is empty, that has been sitting there for days, and you've paid for their food, their activities, whatever, materials, whatever the costs are. You're not going to be refunded that money. So giving them a refund is a challenge. You may want to look at, is there a prorating option that I can offer? Is it better that I just tell them, like, you've spent a lot of time and energy on this. It may be better for you to go home and I'll give you credit towards a future event, which then you have to make sure you're being mindful in that future event that you're already kind of down in terms of price per person when you're looking at your budget. Those would be my first initial go-tos is like, this isn't working if it's been 3 days of delays, like something's not working well here. My preference is to give people 2 options and let them choose between the 2. Like that's my favorite customer service is you have the option to not keep trying to come here, go home and take the next 3 days for rest, make your own little mini retreat. Yeah. Maybe Zoom them in, right? Like we're all so comfortable with Zoom now. Let's try to Zoom them in so they still get some of the content. Or if you've been recording the content, give it to them after the fact. Or option B, we'll give you credit to come to a future event or, whatever 2 options you come up with. I don't go more than 2 options because that's too many. Now they feel like all the things are possible. And if you only give them, this is what I'm doing, then it makes them feel trapped and cornered and that's not as appealing. And so when you give them 2 options, it's kind of the sweet spot, no more, no less. And then just which option do you want? Let me know by X amount of time so that I can make the changes and, call it a day.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up the chargeback thing because that truly is the bane of most business owners' existence. And if somebody claims a chargeback against you, right, the investigation starts from their bank to see if services or goods were actually provided. And then you get a notification as a business owner. If you haven't dealt with this yet, by the way, this is the process. You get a notification through your payment provider from that bank that they're investigating this. And unless the default is that the customer claiming the chargeback is right, you are the one that has to provide evidence that they are wrong. How are you going to provide evidence that they're wrong if they didn't show up? The only way to do that is a contract that says these are non-refundable, no matter what. We're not responsible for your late flight. We're not responsible if, your mom got sick. This money stays with you, right? It doesn't matter what the situation is that created this. What matters is how you can deal with it on a customer service side and how your contract backs you up from the business side, because these can be and regularly are different things. It's important to realize that.
And sometimes the first question when someone's having this level of travel issue is, did you pay travel insurance?
Yes, love that, because a lot of travel insurances will come with a thing that non-refundable events that you're traveling to, they'll cover them if the travel insurance covers the reason that your flight is late or delayed. When you're setting up your communication when somebody comes on, recommending that their travel that they book comes with travel insurance. Alternatively, you can also look at booking group travel insurance if you're working with a travel agent. This is something also helpful. But these are just options to be able to avoid these kinds of situations. So let's change that a little bit, right? This was all kind of like in the moment. But let's say it's 3 months before your retreat, because these things take a while to organize and put on, right? And 3 months before your retreat, it's sold out. It is sold out. But somebody comes and says, sorry, there's something massive happening in my life the week of your retreat. I can't make it. What options do we look at from a customer service perspective as a host, trying to create a positive experience for them, knowing that life happens also for the attendees, right? It's not just us.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can look at the insurance option again, because if it is something where a loved one has died or something like that, sometimes that can be in effect, not typically 3 months in advance, but generally speaking, you do want to check their insurance or have them check their insurance rather. You can also allow them depending on your, again, this is you being gracious. You have your contract and it has the rules that there are no refunds, period. If you decided that you wanted to allow them to perhaps transfer it to someone else, they could find someone else to go in their place. If you wanted to be really generous, and I don't think I recommend this, but I know some people do it, they'll offer like a flash sale where like, oh, we have one spot left, whatever the case is, so that they can sell that ticket for you and kind of replace you on the roster. I think that's a little messy. I don't necessarily like that version. And when it's only one person, I feel like it's not always necessary. Usually that person has a friend or a family member who can go in their place, or they're friends with other people in your audience, where they can find someone to replace them. That's my first choice. I don't like the flash sale as much, but it's your business. You can run it how you'd like.
And especially if you've got an audience already, this idea of transferring their spot, let them deal with the money. Transfer between them. Be like, look, just tell me the email and the name of the person, use their intake form. If we approve them, we're good to go. I love that you bring that up, because that's something we recommend for a lot of our in-person service providers, of when you want to have events that are non-refundable bookings, that you're planning other vendors around, your team around, making sure that you're getting enough notice that if somebody needs to cancel, that you're not going to lose out. Or if you are going to lose out, finding ways that you're protected, right? That can look like requiring that, 50% of the payment stay with you regardless of when they cancel, right? Enough to cover your expenses, right? Maybe you lose out on the profit of it, but at least you're not in the weeds, losing money for something that happened in their lives. Or allowing them to transfer their spot, right? Let them sell it on the market. Maybe you require an approval of the person they submit to you, because it's your retreat. These are very intimate things. But of being like, look, I'm not going to do the work to sell your spot. And acknowledging that it's work to put on this flash sale, even at a discounted rate, right? I don't want to deal with the money involved. I don't want to deal with pricing it again. Here's my community. Find a friend. Transfer it. No problem. But giving people that option is really helpful. And in your contract, you can say when that comes up of like, I'm sorry, we don't offer refunds, but we do allow for transfer. According to the contract, ABC. So if you want to do that, here's the next step. Lining up your intentions with your contract, with your communication, is going to make sure that you create a really strong customer service experience, even when, the nonsense of life happens. It's going to happen. It's hard not to.
And sometimes, you'll get an email and someone pulls on your heartstrings and you're like, you know what? It's already sold out. I'm just going to refund them, and call it a day. Maybe they've become a challenge in other situations and you don't even necessarily want them in there anymore. So it's all for the best. You have those options when you provide them to yourself. It's really just a matter of making sure that you've got the provision of no refunds on your contract so that you have that to lean on if you need it.
I think you phrased it really well. You have those options when you provide them to yourself. Otherwise, you are subject to the whims of the demands of whoever is pulling at you, and the laws of the place that you're operating in, and the laws of the place that they're a resident in, and the laws of the place that your company is in. Y'all, even as a lawyer, that's a lot for me to figure out where the baseline is. But if you've got it in your contract, even if you're operating, in a place that's really consumer friendly, as long as your stuff's not egregiously screwing someone over, most courts in the world are going to be like, look, you signed a contract with these people over there. Like, that's probably the gig. There's definitely exceptions to that, right? Like if you're going to France, Jesus Christ, the French are protection of all consumers. Talk to a French lawyer. I've got a friend. Call me. But does not apply. But normally, this is going to be a moment of the options that you give yourself in your contract, the options that you give yourself in your communication to prime your attendees of what their options are. That's going to create the realistic resolution. And then let's do one last one. The food poisoning. It happens. It happens. Especially if we're taking our people to places where their stomachs don't have biomes of the food there, right? And they didn't know not to drink the water, or somebody put ice made from the water in their soda, which, things happen. When we got food poisoning for an attendee, what's our first step?
I definitely want to identify where the food poisoning came from, if I can, so that I know how much medicine to buy. Because is everyone else come down with it? Was this from last night's catering, right? Or is this something you got in traveling? Was it a one-off because you got, a special drink somewhere? Those things are interesting to try to kind of play detective and find out. And it's not so much about wanting to know the information as it is about wanting to know, is it going to spread? Is this like food poisoning, or is this virus? Like making sure you can contain what you can, putting that person in ideally their own room if you're able to, means shuffling some beds around. Try to A, make them more comfortable, and B, again, if it is something that's contagious, then we're not spreading it everywhere. And then I'm coming back with Clorox wipes. I just, mentally, that's my doorknobs and all the things. But, ultimately it's about containment, I guess is the single word objective there is containment, whether it's making sure it wasn't in everyone's food, making sure they're not spreading it, is just kind of containing the situation to one location. And then looking at, okay, if it is food poisoning, we're probably looking at 24 to 48 hours, depending on the level of food poisoning, right? If you're domestic, then chances are you can probably go buy some Pepto or something and they'll be all right in a day or so. Internationally, I mean, there's all sorts of things that you could pick up depending on your retreat and where you've been. I'm going to use the Amazon just because it's the extreme example, right? But if you're in the Amazon where we don't even know what all is in there, I'm more concerned. My senses are a little more heightened. I'm going to start tracking their symptoms and the times because I want to make sure that I'm helping the medical staff there, because that's what I would want someone to do for me if I was in their situation. And so that's kind of where my thought process goes. And then ultimately it's looking at, again, is this a 24-hour situation? How much longer do we have left in the retreat? Is this the first day of 10 days? Or is this the last day? Are they supposed to be checking out tomorrow? Are they going to have to fly home on a stomach that's sour? Anyway, so there's a lot of possibilities in what those answers can look like, but you want to contain the situation and then kind of mitigate the outcome in terms of minimizing impact to other people, minimizing how much they're impacted beyond this moment, right? Like if they do have a flight home tomorrow, do they want me to call and try to change the flight or, get them an extension on the room, like those kinds of things. So then you have to look at like what's next. So contain and then look at what's next and how can we kind of mitigate the impact.
I think mitigation is really the name of the game in these kind of situations, making sure that you as the host can continue hosting the retreat that you intended to, give them as much of that as they can handle and want to handle, and then making sure the rest of your attendees are super safe. I love that you brought up the Amazon though, because I just took my grandparents on a river trip through the Amazon, showed them Brazil. We took them all over the country. It was a lot of fun. I have the biome for Brazil. I've been here for a minute. The food here, it causes no issues for me, even deep in Manaus. There's no problem. My grandparents, on the other hand, not so much. What is amazing, though, and I think it's something to be aware of, if you're wanting to do international retreats, it's very important to be aware of how the healthcare system works in that country. In the U.S., we would not go to the hospital for dehydration and an upset stomach for food poisoning. We would not, because it's going to cost a mountain of money that nobody wants to spend. Nobody wants to put that deductible on their insurance. If you have insurance, it's a whole thing. Here in Brazil, both of my grandparents got food poisoning, so it's fascinating to watch. My grandfather on the boat on the river, it's a cruise ship. It's a small cruise ship, but it's a cruise ship. They have a nurse on board. She's used to plenty of foreigners coming in and getting food poisoning because they're not used to the bacteria here on the food. She gave him some meds, recommended that he drink some coconut water because that is the solution for all things, to drink water out of a coconut. Trust me, it's good. It's better than Gatorade, I swear, and much, much more fun. And he was good in a couple days. My grandmother, on the other hand, it took a little bit longer, and hers didn't kick in quite as fast, even though they had been eating the exact same thing. What happened with my grandmother? We took her to a public hospital on an island on the next place that we went to. And public health care here in Brazil is free. My grandmother was not panicking, but they were quite worried of like, oh my God, we need travel insurance, we need this, we need that. I'm like, well, it can help with these things, but for healthcare, particularly in Brazil, this isn't a problem. You go to the hospital, there's no big deal. My grandmother went in, a clown in a suit sang to her and called her little blonde woman, even though her hair is white. She went back in a hallway with a bunch of seats lined up. They gave her an IV with stuff to calm her stomach down, rehydrate her, make her feel better. And I think they gave her a kick of caffeine because she was really excited after we left. And as we're walking out the door, she keeps looking for the desk where you get the bill, you get the invoice, you give them your insurance information. It doesn't exist because healthcare is a national right here. Knowing where you're taking your people, what their exposure is to travel, right? And then knowing where the options are to go. We knew there was an option for a nurse on the boat. We knew there was an option for public hospital on the island. Having that, in the back of your mind when these things come up, if it needs to go beyond, sequestering somebody in a house and cleaning everything and Cloroxing, it's going to be super helpful for you as a host. It allows you to move on with the retreat for everybody else.
Yeah, anytime tells me that they want to host an international retreat, my first question is where, and my second question is how many times have you been yourself? Because a lot of people are like, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but a lot of people dream of, oh, I want to go to Bali, oh, I want to go here, I want to go there. Like, they have these big dreams, and those are great dreams. I'm not saying you shouldn't dream. Don't misunderstand me. If you intent,
just let us help you get there.
But there's some information that's difficult to understand just by reading a Google search, right? AI can't do this homework for you. It's something that you need. When people are entrusting themselves to you for that amount of time and that amount of money, it's important that you take it seriously and that you do know what your options are, and you're not gonna know without boots on the ground a lot of times. I don't typically recommend that you do an international retreat in a place you've never been to before, typically. Now, there are some places, Virgin Islands, for instance, they're not exactly international, but you'll get, the international vibe. Yeah, they're kind of like on the cusp of international, right? You can do things domestically that feel international, and you can do things international that feel domestic, right? So it just depends on what you're going for. But it's in all of those cases, it's important to be informed. And sometimes that even means, like, in your binder, one of the things that is definitely like the cover page is emergency contact information. Where's the nearest hospital? That kind of thing.
Super helpful. Well, if you want to protect your retreat and handle challenges like this with confidence and, being chill, definitely go check out Raelyn. She supports hosts making these binders for them so they can lead the retreat just as a host and not as the person managing all the small details. And if you want help on the legal side, definitely check out our retreat template bundle. It's got contracts that cover your attendee contract. We've got a health and liability waiver in there, so in case somebody gets food poisoning, it's not on you. But we've also got IP waivers in there, so all the photos you take at your retreat are yours. And we've even got a list of, like, hey, these common questions from your attendees, like, can I cancel? Can I reschedule? How to respond to them, and what part of the contract covers that for you. Like, we're giving you that language. So you join our mailing list. I'm going to drop Raelyn's website down here in the comments. You'll also see the link to our mailing list. You get first access to exclusive sales when we do host sales, so don't miss out. Raelyn, where can they find you? So in case they're just listening, right, and they're not checking out the link down below, where can they find you for their next retreat?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just go to our website. It's retreatmagic.com. You can join our newsletter there as well. I'm definitely dropping some fun things in next month, my birthday month, so we're having a party, and I'd love to have you guys. But definitely, whether it's actual support physically at your event, whether it's consulting on planning, or whether you're trying to just DIY and you need some extra tips to help kind of DIY with a CYA, then we can help you with that too.